Everyone, it's day 18, and as you can see, I am not in the office. I'm not at home. I'm actually in Germany. There's a huge crypto event going on today in the afternoon, and then tomorrow all day on Sunday, and I'm here. It's going to be quite exciting. I'm going to meet a couple of our customers, going to meet a lot of friends that I've known actually in the crypto space for quite a while. And yeah, I'm just freshening up in my hotel room, and I thought I'm going to do the Q&A video today, where I answer the questions that you posted under the YouTube videos in the past on this 90-day game plan. So yeah, if you want your question answered, simply post your questions. We're going to collect them, and about once a week, depending on how many questions we have, I'll answer them. So let's dive in. Number one question here is, or the first question, what about this 90-day game plan? Like, what is the promotion here? What are my ways how I can really benefit from this on the platform? There's quite a lot of questions on Instagram and on my Twitter. I wanted to add those as well. Check it out. We have launched this 90-day game plan promo, and we're going to be raffling off quite a few cool things. I'll link it up especially down below. It's for those who really utilize our product and services on Bake. Head over, check them out. You have quite cool things to win, and yeah, we've really designed that to get you back as a customer, to gain new customers, and I think it's really, really interesting. Question number 2 is, what about launching an MVP? How about if the UX and everything is not there yet? May this not distract potential customers? That is true, but you just have to find that right mix. So people really have to understand that this is an MVP. It's really the beginning, and they have to understand that it's not a finalized product. Now, Apple, for example, at the moment gets a lot of flack for launching stuff that is still MVP-ish, and Apple is not used to that or is not known for that. So it's just a bit on the style and who you're attracting. You just have to be very clear about this. If you look at the Vision Pro, for example, in Apple, here people are a bit more tolerant. But then in other things, especially with the Apple intelligence, I think people are a bit less tolerant. So it's really all about balancing that. How about judging yourself? Are you constructive if someone criticizes you? I would hope so. I think it's a bit different how I am on the internet versus how I am in real life. I think on the internet, in general, I just think a lot of people are trolls and are haters, and they just don't really have honest or like constructive feedback. But I think, and that's why I think on the internet, I tend to ignore most people, or if not all people. But I think in real life, I try to be very constructive about feedback. Not always easy, but I'm always thankful when people give me feedback. I think that's key. Who in the company is allowed to make decisions, and who is allowed to criticize your decisions? Depends on the decision who is allowed to make that. If it's a decision that's absolutely crucial that I know I can't change afterwards and it impacts the company, I mean, it's only going to be me who's making that decision. I own the company and it only impacts me at the end. But if it's a smaller decision, it can be done by the team. And who can criticize decisions? Anyone. I don't have an issue when people criticize the decision. At the end, people who criticize the decision really have to understand also how it impacts the person making the decision. And I think that's always crucial. How about the cadence and the motivation over those 90 days during the 90-day comeback game plan? Can you keep that high? Well, I'm trying. Right now we're at day 18. I think it's still very high. I'm a bit jet-lagged, but I think the energy and everything is still good. And I'm expecting it to hold on for those 90 days. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be days when energy is a bit lower, but that's absolutely normal. Julian, what do you think about using a choker? For example, during the 90 days, you're allowed to kind of skip 2 days. Is this a good or a bad idea? Hey, you can do that. That's really up to you. I'm not intending on doing this. For me, it's been really 90 days, and I want to go all out in those 90 days. I'll be making a video every day, and yeah, at the moment, it's been 18 videos in a row. So really focused on it. I really want to understand, how did you plan those 90 days? Is it very strict? Is it very clear? How do you go about this? I have a bit of a rough idea in what the 90 days looks like, what is going to happen on what day. It depends a bit on the companies. I kind of looked this out. What are we going to do in June, July, August? But at the end, a lot of it also has to be flexible. So you want to have some frameworks, and you want to do the tactics as you go. And I think many times this is what you have to do. And at the end, that's what I'm doing here. Julian, sometimes you're saying that you're really trying to kind of take some time off, and then you're trying to be in the here and now, for example, when you play chess. However, when you say this, shouldn't then you really enjoy that time, and shouldn't it just pass super quickly? Shouldn't you really be able to focus on that time period? Sure, but I mean, we all know that sometimes you really enjoy something and you can be in the here and now and time just flies by. And then sometimes you can really enjoy the moment and it feels like an eternity in a positive sense. So look, when I play chess, I really enjoy the time. I love kind of getting into the game, thinking about it, and yeah, sometimes the game takes quite a while and sometimes it just feels it flies by. I think one doesn't exclude the other. When you're doing meetings, are you taking meeting minutes? Normally we don't, except for some meetings, risk meetings, board meetings, but normally we don't. I think in a startup, there would be so much overhead in doing that. Are you taking notes, and how does this work? I do take notes. I sometimes summarize the meeting a little bit. To be fair, I think our meeting hygiene is not the best. I think we can definitely improve that. So I know from some other companies, they're doing a way better job summarizing the meeting, sharing meeting notes with everyone. We do try to have an agenda for the meeting, and we do try to have a few topics, but sometimes it's just very ad hoc and very startup-y. I think it really depends a bit. But I agree. I think actually the meeting hygiene in general, I could definitely improve. It was one of the things that I actually wanted to do after the 90 days to really focus on. What happens if meetings overrun? Are you going to cut it or are you going to keep going? Depends. It depends really on the meeting, depends on the importance. I sometimes have meetings where I cancel everything afterwards because it's so important, and sometimes it's really where I just need to get out and say, hey, I'm sorry, meeting's over, I need to hop into the next one. It really depends on how important the subject is. And that's at the end what it comes down to. It's importance over urgency, and that's not always easy, to be fair. Different question now, so we're jumping obviously because it really depends a bit on the topics. How about friendships? How do you know how you can help others? How do you know what other friends need from you? Really good question, difficult question. I think a good place to start maybe is the 5 love languages and understanding that every person has a bit of a different kind of language in how you can help them, right? It can be doing a person favors, making gifts, spending time, focusing, doing things for that person, creating little things for that person. Obviously with a friend, maybe the personal touch is not the right thing, but could be just a hug or something, but obviously it's a bit different than in a relationship. Obviously the same applies with coworkers or as a team, a lead team member. Obviously in these settings, always be very careful with the personal touch element or sometimes the words of affection, right? So obviously keep this professional, but in general, and I don't think like you watching this, you're going to be all too stupid about this. It's about the intention and the direction, right? Some people just respond way better to giving them a nice high five, and others just really need that constructive kind of optimism and this compliment. And that these are some crucial things. And at the end, sometimes I also want to just highlight one thing that I felt over those really rough 8 months. It's not about being alone. It's about feeling that you're in this alone. Feeling alone, right? Not being alone, feeling alone. I think that's the toughest part. So never forget that about a good friend. You always want that a good friend feels and knows that you're there, that you're doing this with him. I think that's such a crucial concept. Don't forget about that. How do you split up huge tasks into smaller ones? What do you do there? And I mean, I talked about this in the to-do setup where I tackle my to-do list every morning. I think an absolute crucial one is just to break these things down with clear, and now pay attention to this, action items. So don't just break it down in like points. Make it clear on what has to be done. Write down this, call this, deliver that, write this, create that, and so on. And so that is what I try to do there. And then for me always, I think that's really the crucial thing. If I just think of, let me tell you about some of the largest projects, right, that I had to do, let's say over the last 8 months. A lot of it had been legal. And sometimes we had to create documents for the judge that were hundreds of pages. Like we actually created a document that was 1,000 pages, right? An affidavit, for example. And at the end, what's really important there is to start with an outline and understand what in general do you want to pack in there. And it's similar how you start writing a book, right? So it's the same thing. You want to have a rough outline and then really kind of break it down. But I like to not just go and start from A and then work down. I love to have A through Z in a rough outline and then dig deeper. For me also, sometimes it's difficult to judge how long something takes. And then what I do is I just kind of schedule it in and I go as long as I have time and then stop and then I continue the next day. So that's also something that I think is just straightforward. Obviously, this was also here a question. What happens if you don't get everything done on a single day? I reflect, was it because I was lazy? Did I procrastinate? Happens. Or was it just that I scheduled like a bit too generously and at the end everything took a bit longer than I had expected? Both are things that can happen. How often does it happen that someone sends you an email and you don't reply? Happens really a lot, and that is not like I don't try to be offensive, but I think, like I said, I sometimes get dozens of emails a day from someone who needs something, and that is not my problem. I don't want to be rude, right? Or I don't want to be arrogant, but it's not my problem. Some other people want something. I respect that, but I also hope that they respect that I want things. And for example, I don't want to reply. So I'm not trying to be rude, but I think everyone has that. Everyone should have that right? So I don't criticize someone asking for stuff, for sending me information or I don't know, wanting feedback, but that doesn't mean I need to give it. What about your new book? Yeah, I'm here actually for the book launch. It's gonna happen Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Man, that's gonna be quite some effort, and looking forward to that. It's the first book in 5 years, so it's only gonna come in German for now, and then let's see, maybe I'll do English later. What about the crypto markets at the moment? What are your thoughts on this? Look, I know that this video series has mostly been non-crypto, but it's also, I would have included crypto had there been much more happening. And there just isn't. At the moment, the Fed is doing what it's expected to do. The Ethereum ETF hopefully comes by August. I think we're not going to see much action until the summer's over. So until the end of August, I'm not expecting too much. So it all kind of fits in. So look, Buffett has this really great quote about the stock market handing profits from the impatient to the patient. I think crypto is even crazier. I think so many people try to chase after the next 10-bagger, and most people just never get those. So this is my set of questions. Let me know what you think. If you have other questions, let me know. I'll answer that in the next series. And tomorrow, we're going to continue with that video series. I hope you're having a good weekend. All the best here from Germany. Yours truly, Julian. Bye-bye.